Now, here's something I was going to put on Locals, the subscription service, and I might shorten this and put it on there, but it's what I call the observer effect. And the reason I'm giving a name to something that you all understand, that an observer can be wrong, that's not really a shocking statement. But when you give something a name, you give it extra power. For example, naming Trump derangement syndrome, or TDS, allowed you to talk about it and gave power to that concept. Here's some others where just naming it gives it power. The Dunning-Kruger effect. Until the Dunning-Kruger effect had that name, it was harder to talk about it. It wasn't as powerful. But as soon as you put a name on it, oh, we all know what that is. Now the power of that thing can increase as people understand it and talk about it. And naming it gave it power. The Gell-Mann amnesia effect, the Peter principle, the Dilbert principle. So any of these things which were concepts that got a name, the name gave them power. And so I'm trying to give power to this thing I call the observer problem. I'll give you some examples. And the first thing that happened when I tweeted about this, here's what I tweeted, and then I'll tell you what the response was. I said, how many of you will hallucinate an opinion from me today because you're bad at mind reading, and then criticize that hallucination like it is my fault? I call it the observer problem. Predictably, and I could have told you this would happen in advance, people went into the comments and said, yeah, that's just the straw man thing. You're just renaming the straw man. No, no, I'm not. I can see why you'd think it's similar. The straw man, in my opinion, you won't see this in the definition, but in the wild, and in my opinion, the straw man is somewhat intentional. Or at the very least, the person doing it doesn't care if they're being accurate. So a straw man is where you make an argument and then somebody changes your argument into something weird so that they can criticize it. So they're not really criticizing the real argument, they're criticizing what's called a straw man, or a fake version of your argument that's weak and hollow. So that exists, and of course that's called being a straw man. But the observer problem, I would say, is different. And the difference is that the observer doesn't know that the problem is on their end. The person doing a straw man either knows it intentionally or they kind of suspect it, you know what I mean? It's not like they necessarily know it consciously, but they kind of know it. But the observer effect is they actually are just hallucinating. They actually think something happened that didn't happen, and then they're arguing their hallucination. And I think that calling it the observer effect, you're going to see it in a bunch of contexts. Now I'm going to tie together this thing about the testosterone and confidence. All right, goes like this. Follow along with this reasoning. If you are a cocky, overconfident person and you run into another cocky, overconfident person, how do you get along? Pretty well, pretty well. And I say that as a cocky, overconfident person. Whenever I meet somebody who's like me, overconfident, I get along marvelously because they don't scare me. They're familiar. I go, oh, that's me. Hey, look at me over there. Oh, that guy's just like me. Suppose you have low confidence, very low confidence, and you meet somebody else who has low confidence. How do you get along? Probably pretty well. I've got low confidence, you've got low confidence. Hey, we're not threatening to each other. We get along. But what happens if somebody with low confidence, whether temporarily because it's just where they are in their life or their normal biological cycles, it doesn't have to be anything to do with your monthly cycle, you could just have low confidence. What happens when a low confidence person comes into contact with a cocky, high confidence person? See where I'm going? To the person with low confidence, a person with high confidence looks not just like somebody who's got an advantage, they look disgusting. They look sickening. They look like it makes your skin crawl. And that's the observer problem. The observer is looking at somebody, let's say in this case, it's not somebody who is so grandiose in their thinking that they actually are a full narcissist with bad impacts. Let's just say it's somebody like me who intentionally picks a point of confidence above my actual ability, as I see it, because I want it to be there. The most functional place you can put your confidence is above your actual abilities. Not much above, but above them as you understand them. Because the problem is you might underestimate your own abilities. So to avoid the problem of underestimating your own ability, you intentionally, if you're smart, and this is what I recommend, you try to pin yourself to a level of confidence above what you believe is realistic, because you're usually wrong about what you can do. Let me give you an example. When I tried to become a professional cartoonist with no experience at being a cartoonist at all, I was putting my confidence well above anything that was rational about where my skill was. Completely irrational. Also intentional. I was intentionally shooting above where I believed I could hit because I also believed I had an illusion about what my potential was. And I was trying to find a system that would overcome my own illusion about my low quality of ability. And so I quite intentionally peg my confidence well above what feels like I can do, because I don't know. And this Periscope, this live stream is a good example. And I've told you this story. When I first started doing the live stream, before I had my sinus surgery, my voice was terrible. I had voice problems before. I'm nasally, not good at this. I don't have a good physical look. I'd be better on radio. There are a million things wrong with it. But because I peg my confidence above what is obviously my ability, I sometimes can hit it and just surprise myself. And the number of times that you do hit the level that you don't think was even really realistic is amazing. Have you seen my wife? I could end the conversation with, have you seen my wife? All right. A perfect example of if I had not pinned my confidence well above what any kind of common sense says works, I would have missed, the marriage that I'm in, for example. So I would say that it's always a good technique to put your confidence above your actual belief of your ability. It's just good technique. That's all. But the problem is that when the observer is watching somebody like me just use technique to put my confidence above where it belongs, I am disgusting and narcissistic and just like an abomination, because our confidence levels are mismatched. Now that's the observer problem. The problem lies entirely in the observer in this example. Did I have a problem? No, I actually had a good technique and a solution, and one that has been a driving force to all of my happiness and success. So I don't have a mental problem. I have a success technique that works over and over and over again. But the observer says the problem's on my end. But the problem obviously is just the observer can't handle the differences in the confidence. It's just disgusting if you don't have it. Now, the day that observer does something amazing or something's turned around and their confidence comes up to something more equivalent to my artificial confidence, how are they going to look at me now? Not the same. Not the same. But I didn't change. Nothing about me changed. It was only the observer changed. And I would say that this is probably, this observer problem crosses pretty much everything. Personal, professional, political. You see the observer problem just everywhere.